Susie's not. Where's Susie? Susie's not here, and no, but Susie's here, but she's not even here. And Sandy, okay. Here's Kathy. And I assume we have people online, David? We do. Okay, good. And the sound is working? Excellent. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So I'm going to do this from memory, and I know I'm going to goof it up, but there you go. I'm going to do this from memory, and I'll probably goof it up. But just to remind you of a few things, Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, Natan Fuchs's new class starts. It's basically the medieval and going forward history of Jews in Europe, both Ashkenazic and Sephardic. At 6:30, there will be the campfire and sing-along out at our new fire pit. And you're going to ask me where that is. It's over that way. Well, Kathy's pointing that way and you're pointing that way. Okay, by the playground. Wherever the smoke is coming up, and we'll be making the ancient sacrificial lamb offering or marshmallow offering. And Alex Lumelski, if you don't know him, they've been here members for a little while now, but he's a former professional musician who is also a very talented graphic artist. He does the magazine now for the Humanistic Judaism. You'll see the next issue. But he's going to be leading that. He does music for us as a volunteer on Sunday mornings, and he's just a fabulous guy. I should also use this opportunity to mention David Weeks, because nobody gets to see him because he's behind the scenes, but he puts us on YouTube every week, and that's not a little work. Because when the pandemic ended, I said to them, you guys realize I can't do that part anymore, right? And then so next Friday night, I'll be away for a week, so if you need anything, Anne-Marie and the temple, call. Next Friday night, we will be hearing from Rabbi Moshe Giventhal, who is an environmental activist, and he's going to talk about sort of the Jewish connections with eco-activism and so forth. The following week, and I hope we'll get a nice turnout for all of them, but this one is kind of special. It's a fellow named Jerry Peterson, who is the director of the Ruth Ellison Center for LGBTQ youth. And it's a really important endeavor here in town. Then we'll be taking off a week for Thanksgiving, and when we return, I'm going to speak on December 10th about whether or not there was a real Jesus. It's in honor of Thanksgiving. No, it's in honor of just this being the season, obviously, but a scholarly, I hope, talk about that. And then to close up 2021 on the 17th, Congressman Andy Levin will be here to speak about his two-state solution, not his two-state solution, his two-state solution legislation, which is making its way through Congress and which I think is a very, very important effort. And it would be nice to have a good number of people. We're happy tonight to welcome Laura De Palma. Laura De Palma, I'll introduce her in a little while, is a longtime friend of the temple, has done some amazing social justice work here in town, is somebody that I'm very honored to have worked with, at least through the congregation in the past. So welcome to you, Laura. And we will begin with our first reading, Arthur. Oh, and this is the part I always forget, right? I'm in my 9th year now, and I'll never remember this. To tell you who else is reading besides me, it will be Deborah and Mark Luria, and Helen Foreman and Saul Foreman, and Amanda Rossman, but not necessarily in that order, so keep an eye on your number. We come together this Shabbat, each bringing with us a private world of hopes, of fears, of dreams. Some of us are burdened by anxieties and cares that all but crash our hope in the future. Others have hearts filled with happiness, grateful for the joys of the past week, yet aware that even the most fortunate are vulnerable before the mystery of tomorrow. Every life is a unique blending of joy and sorrow, of fulfillment and frustration. Beneath our uniqueness, we are all bound together by our common humanity. All of us deeply yearn to know true freedom and peace. Each of us seeks the personal liberation of a mind that is not enslaved to conventional wisdom, a heart that is able to love without fear, a spirit that cries yes to our potential. Each of us strives too for the inner peace that comes with finding a harmony between our aspirations and our abilities. This is the Shabbat peace to which we aspire. I'd like to invite Cindy and Bruce Hillenberg to light our Shabbat candles.
Love this reading. May the doors of our community be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love and all who are lonely for friendship. May they welcome all who care to unburden gratitude. May they welcome all who have cares to unburden, gratitude to experience, hopes to nurture. May the doors of our community be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May their threshold be no stumbling block to the young or unsure feet. May they be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, or harshness. May this congregation be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life.
There are times when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. When we gather on Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are times when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. When we gather on Shabbat, we consider our true place on this planet. There are times when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. When we gather on Shabbat, we remind ourselves that justice is our duty and a better world is our goal. Let us embrace this moment, a Shabbat gathering to unite, to learn, to better ourselves.
At one with our forebears, we affirm that righteousness and enlightenment shall be our torch. We shall teach these values diligently to our children all the days of our lives. We shall endeavor to live by these values in the comfort of our homes or on cold and windswept roads. Whether adversity bows our heads or fulfillment makes our spirits soar, our hands shall mete out justice to all, and our eyes shall be open to the light of truth. We shall emblazon our paths through life with this light as a beacon for all humankind.
Strength is in me, and in you, and in you. Where is my strength? My strength is in me, and in you, and in you.
Shabbat Shalom. When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when, through the last full measure of selfless devotion, we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then goodness encompasses our lives and we can begin to change the world.
וכשאני לעצמי מעני ואימא עכשיו מתי אם אין אני לי מילי וכשאני לעצמי מעני ואימא עכשיו מתי בכל דור ודור היה לאדם לראות את עצמו כאלוהו יצא ממצרים אם אין אני לי מילי וכשאני לעצמי מה אני ואם לא עכשיו מתי
On February 14, 1990, as the first deep space probe, Voyager 1, left our planetary neighborhood for the fringes of the solar system, engineers turned it around for one last look at its home planet, now 4 billion miles away. It actually didn't shine like that. They enhanced that. A little white dot in there. This, of course, is what Carl Sagan famously wrote. Look at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that in glory and triumph, they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.
Na'aseh shalom, shalom olam. Na'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam ve'imru shalom. Na'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam ve'imru shalom. Na'aseh shalom, shalom ha'olam. Na'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam ve'imru shalom.
In this community where we find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts toward all those who need our love and support, those who are ill, those who suffer pain of the body or spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. Tonight, our congregation extends our well wishes to these members and their loved ones, to Joe Gaden, Julie Eliason, Karen Tremper-Harris, and Rabbi Peter Schweitzer. And if there's someone whom you're thinking about whose name you'd like to share, as we do every week, we'll start over here. Anybody on this side? Okay, Sandy? Miriam? Anybody else? May all who suffer know that they are not alone. May they be healed quickly. May they experience a refuah shlema, a complete recovery, the renewal of their bodies, and the renewal of their spirits.
Mekom hakoach betocheinu, mekorot habracha michevroteinu. May the source of and let us say Shalom. Nekom hakol betochenu, mekorot habracha michevrotenu. May those in need of healing know refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Shalom.
If I should die and leave you here a while, be not like others sore undone, who keep long vigil by the silent dust. For my sake, turn again to life and smile, nerving thy heart and trembling hand to do something to comfort other hearts than mine. Complete these dear unfinished tasks of mine, and I perchance may therein comfort you.
Our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every people and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We recall now our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own. This week marks the yahrzeit of Yitzhak Rabin, Zichro Livracha. May his memory be a blessing. And we also tonight observe the yahrzeits of these members and loved ones of our congregation. Of Pearl Broida, Karen Kurval, Leon Cousins, Sophie Ellenbogen, Aaron Goff, Helen Hussad, Stuart Itzkowitz, Goldie Kramer, Sanford Morris, Edward Rashavi, May Rossman, Ilsa Weinberg, and Julian Ziegler. If there's someone else whom you're remembering tonight whose name you'd like to share, once again, we'll go around. Bobby. Thank you. Anybody on this side? Yes. Thank you, Amanda. Anybody that we missed? Yehi Zichram Livracha, we say, may memories of these people provide us with the blessing, by which we mean, as we go through life in their absence, may their memories provide us with some measure of comfort. If you can do so comfortably, please rise for a humanistic interpretation of Kaddish. We read together, Nit Gadal v'nit Kadash beruach ha'adam. Let us dignify and ennoble all people in the spirit of our shared humanity. Let us acclaim the preciousness of life. Let us show gratitude for life by approaching it with reverence. Let us embrace the whole world, even as we wrestle with its parts. Let us each in our own way take up our share in serving the world and seeking truth. May our commitment to life help us to strengthen healing of spirit and peace of mind. May justice and peace permeate and comfort the house of Israel and all those who dwell on earth. And let us say, Ken Yehi, may it be so. As I mentioned earlier, we are so happy tonight to welcome Laura De Palma. She currently serves as the Midwest Regional Organizing Manager with NARAL, now called NARAL Pro-Choice America. It's a much better name. I like that name because it says what this is about. And I'm just going to inject my 2 cents right here. This is not a women's issue, folks. This is a human rights issue. I know that Laura's going to talk to us how we can protect it, but we are in a precarious moment right now where we are about to watch human rights in this country once again circle the drain. Okay, that's all my little sermon tonight. She'll tell us more about how we can do it, and she does so from the background of a community organizer holding a master's degree in social work from the University of Michigan and working in a variety of different roles for nearly a decade. She has past experience working on then President Obama's re-election campaign and then State Representative Stephanie Chang's re-election campaign. And before NARAL, she was the statewide campaign director for the Caring Majority campaign, which worked on affordable long-term care for older adults and people with disabilities, alongside affordable child care and fair wages for caregivers and domestic workers. We are so fortunate to have Laura and people like Laura in our community doing this work, and I'm so grateful that she took some time out of her weekend to be with us tonight. I'll put my mask on and trade places with her right now. Please join me in welcoming Laura de Palma. The water's for you.
Thank you so much. It is such a joy to be in this congregation. It was such a pleasure to see familiar faces when I came through the doors. I've been here a few times before. It's just such a warming and welcoming community with such beautiful social justice values. So really, really grateful to have the time and space tonight. So I will dig in to abortion rights at the U.S. Supreme Court to start. At the 30-minute mark, it would be great if somebody could let me know, and then we can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is probably going to be the most important case around abortion rights in the United States. Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, which will start oral arguments on December 1st. Essentially, this case centers on a 15-week ban in Mississippi that was struck down by the Fifth Court of Appeals in 2018, but it has been moved up to the Supreme Court. It's been on the docket for over a year, and oral arguments will start on December 1st. Essentially, this case will center on whether or not Mississippi can uphold their 15-week ban on abortion. It is incredibly alarming that the U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to review a clearly unconstitutional abortion ban. There is no path for the Supreme Court to uphold Mississippi's ban without overturning Roe's core holding. So Roe's core holding is that any pregnant person or woman in this country has the right to access an abortion pre-viability, no matter what state you live in, no matter what county you live in. And that mark is right around the 24 weeks, so it is a constitutional and guaranteed right for any person, any pregnant person or woman to access and seek abortion care. If the 15-week ban is allowed to stand, then we will have essentially overturned Roe. So this is a really, really critical case. And December 1st will start oral arguments. There is no doubt that Roe is on the line and access to abortion care is on the line, despite the fact that an overwhelming majority of people in this country support reproductive rights. So the statistic is 77% of people in this country affirm and support reproductive rights and freedom and abortion rights for everybody. Okay, so we can move to the next slide. Okay, so just to let folks know where we're at around Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization. So in July, the state of Mississippi filed its opening brief in this case and explicitly called on the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. Essentially, they called on the Supreme Court to end the constitutional right to abortion. As I mentioned earlier, any ruling in favor of Mississippi's ban would overrule Roe's core protections. Over 220 members of Congress, along with 12 governors, 24 state attorney generals, and hundreds of state legislators hostile to reproductive rights and freedom, also filed briefs with the Supreme Court calling blatantly for an end to Roe v. Wade. There are a slew of governors and state attorneys general that have done this, so there's a really loud, amplifying, organized anti-right movement that is really pushing for an end to Roe, and this is the case that will really show us if that is going to happen. Okay, there are other cases going on right now, so we can move to the next slide. So a lot started to happen on November 1st with a different set of cases. Two cases that are also pending and playing out at the Supreme Court are around Texas SB 8, which is a vigilante enforced law that bans abortion before many people even know they're pregnant, so a 6-week abortion ban. SB 8 has been in effect for nearly 2 months in Texas, decimating access and forcing people to carry their pregnancies to term, or if they can afford it, travel to other states. What's at issue, though, in the cases the Supreme Court started to hear in terms of oral arguments on November 1st is not the constitutional right to abortion itself, but some procedural aspects of the Texas law. So the oral arguments that the Supreme Court heard on November 1st around a couple things it's looking at is, one, Whole Women's Health versus Jackson, which is a challenge to SB 8, particularly a challenge to the vigilante enforcement mechanism. So the court is looking at the mechanism to decide if they will let the mechanism stand as is. A broad coalition of Texas abortion providers, clinic staff, abortion funds, and practical support networks and clergy are the coalition of folks that are bringing on this challenge. The second thing the court heard oral arguments around starting on November 1st is the United States versus Texas, which is challenging SB 8, and that challenge is being brought by the U.S. Department of Justice. And this case is specifically whether or not the Department of Justice can bring this challenge. So those are the two things the court right now is looking at. One is the vigilante enforcement mechanism valid, and can the DOJ bring their challenge? So those are the two things the court is looking at now. On December 1st, when Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization oral arguments start there, they are looking at the constitutionality of abortion and if that is a right we should have constitutionally. So lots of things going on in the Supreme Court, lots of things to keep abreast of and keep looking for as we get closer to December 1st. So what do we know so far? We know that Justices Barrett and Kavanaugh expressed some reservations about Texas's law, but those reservations have nothing to do with the attacks on reproductive freedom or abortion. They have more to do with the procedural issue and the issue of the enforcement mechanism itself. So they're really only concerned about how SB 8's vigilante-style enforcement scheme could be weaponized in the future to attack other rights they do care about. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, this is another case about procedural issues related to abortion, and it is also another case pending at the Supreme Court. In Cameron versus EMW Women's Surgical Center, the Supreme Court is considering whether Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron can step in at the last minute to defend Kentucky's unconstitutional abortion ban, even though other officials in the state previously decided to not defend the law. So lots of things right now are procedural, and so the court heard oral arguments on October 12th, and we expect a decision sometime before next summer, and so there's a lot pending right now. Okay, and then we can go to the next slide. Okay. As I said earlier, it is extremely alarming that the U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to review an abortion ban, particularly given the current makeup of the court. The anti-reproductive freedom supermajority on the Supreme Court, solidified by the confirmations of Trump's anti-choice justices, who are Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, and Neil Gorsuch, is unmistakably hostile to reproductive freedom. Thanks to the confirmations of Trump's anti-choice justices, the anti-choice movement believes that the end of Roe v. Wade is on the horizon, and with this anti-choice supermajority on the court, the anti-choice state lawmakers have launched an all-out assault on reproductive freedom with hundreds and hundreds of anti-choice legislation sweeping across state legislatures in this country. And so essentially, this is a very coordinated anti-choice strategy that's moving at the federal level in the Supreme Court and in state legislatures. Okay, and we can go to the next. Okay, so now I'm going to talk through different types of state laws that could be impacted for better or for worse. And then we can go to the next. Okay, so we'll get into like state laws and what those look like, and then what does this mean for Michigan? So if Roe fell tomorrow, 24 states would likely ban abortion outright. We don't want to imagine a world without federal protection for reproductive rights, but the reality is if Roe does fall, half of the states in this country would likely take action to ban abortion outright. This year, 106 restrictions on abortion access have been enacted at the state level, making it the worst for abortion rights since Roe was decided. So there has just been an unprecedented amount of legislation at the state level that has either been enacted or has been drafted and introduced. And the next slide, we'll get into trigger bans. So trigger bans are direct efforts to criminalize abortion in the absence of Roe. So trigger laws are near total abortion bans that have triggering language for when they go into effect. The laws say things like, this law will automatically go into effect 30 days if Roe v. Wade is overturned. Or it requires someone in the state, such as an attorney general, to take action if Roe does fall. 12 states have trigger bans, including Texas and Oklahoma. And then we can go to the next slide, and I'll get into pre-Roe bans. So the next kind of ban, a pre-Roe ban, is laws that were passed before Roe was made law of the land in 1973. And these pre-Roe bans are laws before Roe that criminalize abortion care and make it illegal after Roe is overturned. They're not in effect now because Roe has not been repealed, but once Roe is repealed, states with pre-Roe bans can outright ban abortion, and Michigan is one of those states, and we'll get into Michigan more in depth in a little bit. So 9 states, including Michigan, Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Texas, West Virginia, Wisconsin, still have pre-Roe bans on their books. There is some uncertainty about what would happen with these laws if Roe falls. In Michigan, Attorney General Dana Nessel has said she will not prosecute pregnant people under the pre-Roe ban that is still on the books. There are still a lot of unknowns and uncertainties, but our AG is amazing and has made a statement that she will not be prosecuting pregnant people that seek abortions, which is good. So we can move on. Okay, so there are 4 states who have amended their state constitution to declare that it does not protect the right to abortion. So there's a lot going on at the state level in terms of state constitutions that is taking this protection away or has taken it away. So what does this mean? We have a federal constitutional right to an abortion. If that goes away, there may still be protections for the right to abortion under state constitutions, except these 4 states have unequivocally said there is no state right to abortion. So in addition to the states on the map, additional states are working to amend their state constitutions to have similar languages. So there's a lot going on at the state level to try to double down on making abortion unavailable and criminalized. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, there are 3 states that have enacted near total abortion bans. Usually in these types of states, abortion is almost completely banned. So let's see, those states are Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Alabama. So as you know, Texas's 6-week ban is particularly egregious. Rather than relying on the state for enforcement, this heinous law grants almost any person, even a stranger, the power to sue somebody for aiding and abetting a pregnant person seeking abortion care. This means anti-abortion activists could make over $10,000 by talking to doctors, health centers, and anyone who helps another person access abortion to court. So it's more complicated in Texas. There's a different mechanism in Texas, but Texas is close to a near abortion ban as well. Anti-choice politicians pass these laws intending for them to be challenged. Some states are even going so far as to argue in legislative hearings that they want their state law to be one to overturn Roe, and they'll use every trick in their playbook to advance their agenda of criminalizing abortion and punishing women, people who are pregnant, and abortion providers. Okay, so now we're going to get to some good news, and those are state protections, so we can go to the next slide. Okay, there is some good news. So we will relish the good news now, knowing that there's like a good long fight ahead, and a good long fight happening right now. So 21 states, including those like Minnesota and Illinois, protect the right to abortion in their state statutes or constitutions. Minnesota's been the state in the Midwest people are looking toward to go seek abortion care in the event that other states around it outright ban it in the wake or in the event that Roe's overturned. So in addition to, I'll go into like more specifics around state protections. The next slide gets into state statutory protections. So of those 21 states who protect the right to abortion, 14 states and DC have laws passed by state legislators that protect abortion rights. And then we can go on to the next slide. There are state constitutional protections. So there are 9 states that protect the right to abortion in their constitution, and these constitutional guarantees are judicially recognized, meaning state courts have ruled that provisions related to privacy, liberty, and equality provide a right to abortion. 2 states with statutory protections also have constitutional protections, and those are California and Massachusetts. As I previously mentioned, anti-choice lawmakers in Kansas and Iowa are trying to undo their protections. So there's a lot, as much as there's a lot playing out federally and in the Supreme Court, there's a lot playing out in states right now in terms of how abortion rights are or are not being protected in terms of constitution at the state level and as well as statutory right. Okay, and then we can go on to the next slide. Okay, so abortion rights have never been the full story. A formal right to abortion care is one thing, but access is another. So the laws I mentioned are only a portion of the laws that impact a person's access to abortion. And everything I discussed so far has a direct impact on the right to abortion. And there are also many other types of laws that push abortion care out of reach for people who may become pregnant. So the brightest red on this map is severely restricted access. And as we move into the darker reds, into the purples, those are states that do have some protections, and then blue states have the most protected areas. So these are just different kind of laws and rules that might have somebody in a mandatory waiting situation or an unnecessary counseling situation that make it more restrictive and less accessible. Overall, anti-choice lawmakers have enacted a web of restrictions meant to make abortion care difficult to get. Each restriction amplifies harm, working to increase patients' logistical, financial, and legal barriers to care. And then we can dig into where Michigan fits in. So like I said earlier, Michigan does have a pre-Roe ban on the books, and we do have a bunch of restrictions in addition to a pre-Roe ban that makes abortion care hard to reach or out of reach for many people. So some of those restrictions are, we have state-mandated bias counseling and 24-hour delay. We have restrictions on insurance coverage of abortion, restrictions on young people's access to abortion, and those are like the main ones, but there are other restrictions as well. So there's a lot of work to do in Michigan to not only safeguard abortion as a right, but also to chip away at all of the restrictions that make it inaccessible for people. And then we can move on to the next slide. So just to kind of sum up this part of the presentation, which was about SCOTUS and the lay of the land in terms of the cases that are on the docket for SCOTUS, as well as the lay of the land in states across the country. Although Roe still stands, the reality is that its promises have long gone unfulfilled for many. Because of restrictions on abortion care and coverage that block access, many people are unable to access the abortion care they need. These burdens disproportionately fall on those already facing the most significant barriers to accessing care. And this sets us up for the next piece of the presentation, which is shorter. It's about the Women's Health Protection Act, because there is a solution to safeguarding our right to abortion, and there is a solution to increasing access to abortion, and the remedies to both of those things can be found in the Women's Health Protection Act. And that's the last piece of the presentation. And we can move the slide. Okay, so the Women's Health Protection Act is federal legislation led by Senators Blumenthal, Baldwin, and Representatives Chu, Frankel, Ayanna Pressley, and Escobar. The really good news is that the Women's Health Protection Act would protect the right to abortion by establishing a right for healthcare providers to provide abortion care, and it would embed that in federal law. It's a piece of legislation, and if Roe fell, we would be able to safeguard our right to abortion. It would also peel back unnecessary restrictions. So a lot of unnecessary restrictions, including mandatory ultrasounds, unnecessary medical visits, bias counseling, all of those types of restrictions would be prohibited in this piece of legislation, and so it would make it more accessible and make sure it's legally afforded to us. And then I think, we can go to the next slide. Okay, and this is the last slide about this, and then we can do some questions. So the good news is that on September 24th, the Women's Health Protection Act passed in the House, which is great, by a vote of 2018 to 2011. 218 and 211 people dissented, so we won by a majority, a small one, but our organization, NARAL Pro-Choice America, is leading the fight around passing the Women's Health Protection Act. And we're very clear that the fight in the Senate will look a lot different. So we are very clear that right now one of the biggest threats to us not being able to pass this in the Senate is the filibuster. So we're doing everything we can in terms of a campaign strategy to repeal the filibuster and to make sure we pass the Women's Health Protection Act. And the goal is to pass this before the ruling comes on the Dobbs v. Women's Jackson Health Organization, and that is supposed to come in June of 2022. So there's like a really tight timeline, and there's a lot of electoral work that has to happen next year. But if we can pass this before the court rules, then we can safeguard abortion. And if the court overturns Roe and we've passed this, then we have the right to abortion. So that's like the big solution. There's like a lot of work that needs to get done to make that happen and to make that a reality. And I think we're good. I think we can go to the next slide. And before we do the action items here, I can take questions. Thank you so much. Medication abortion is so important. Thank you for raising that. And we've been working really, really hard to expand medication abortion, to make abortion easier and safer for people to do in their own home. So medication abortion is a big part of the work that we do. And one of the challenges has been the FDA has put a lot of restrictions on medication abortion. And one of the things we've been working to do is get those restrictions lifted and just make it much more accessible, over the counter, and easier to access. And I think part of the way things have been able to shift and change a little bit is through the pandemic. There was more telehealth medicine being done, and there was more of a fight on our end to push for medication abortion to be prescribed through telehealth. And then we want to go even farther and just make it even more accessible for people to get. So medication abortion is really critical, and just making sure that we decriminalize using any kind of abortion, particularly medication abortion, and that criminalization piece is difficult if Roe is overturned, and like just thinking through that.
Thank you. Is there any statistic available, and is this number used at all in arguments regarding women who take their lives by trying to impart an abortion on themselves, by illegal abortionists and women who suffer all kinds of physical consequences, including subsequent fertility? Are these numbers available and used in these arguments at all?
That is a great question. I will attempt to answer. I know that we've pivoted away from like coat hanger images and that sort of thing because medication abortion is more available, and people are turning to medication abortion. And so the condition, yeah, and and there's like definitely disparities and issues around access. But one of the things that I've heard and our organization has been doing, and I'll take feedback too if folks want more of that messaging to be happening, but we're sort of pivoting more toward like the anti-criminalization or highlighting the criminalizing impact of anti-choice legislation now versus maybe like the I guess the what you described, the way people's bodies might be harmed by it, just because there are conditions that are safer now, and so we're focusing more on that criminalization aspect of it. But I think that's really important. Would love to chat with you after. So. That's a great question. It would be any person in Texas who performs an abortion, helps somebody get an abortion, drives somebody to get an abortion. You know, it's ambiguous. What does help somebody get an abortion mean? But it could be anything from giving them a car ride or maybe helping them find the address of a clinic in Texas. So any way someone can aid and abet any person that gets an abortion and anybody that performs an abortion in Texas. A lot of folks in Texas have been driving outside of the state to get abortions outside of the state of Texas. But if you're helping somebody inside of the state of Texas performing one or getting one, that's when a private citizen could sue you. Yeah, thank you so much, Nomi.
Is anybody currently studying the mental health consequences of women in Texas who are being restricted by FDA?
That's a great question. I don't know, but I would love to actually do some research and learn more about that. I'm not sure about that, and I know our organization is the ways that we're different than an org like Planned Parenthood is we don't do direct service or counseling or anything of that nature. We're an organization that tries to lobby and move forward legislation, but I think that's a really interesting question and would love to learn more, but I don't know at this time.
Anybody else? I think go ahead.
Well, this is very far-fetched, but I think we've all been scrambling, trying to think of what will happen when the worst happens, which, sadly, I think will happen when we lose Roe. I secretly wondered for the approximately 33 states that passed in the 70s and 80s and even recently the amendment to the Constitution for the ERA. Obviously, we don't have enough states quite yet, but I always wonder what that will mean, because we do have on the books Michigan. Michigan did ratify the amendment to the ERA, and that does say women are supposed to be treated equally, which would mean that I should have the same right of control over my body as the man next door to me does. So it's very far-fetched, but I just wonder if you've been anywhere where any of that has been discussed. Obviously, we don't have the amendment. If we had the amendment, it would be another tool to help to preserve reproductive rights. But we don't have that. But we do have 30-plus states, I don't recall the exact amount, that have ratified the ERA amendment.
That is a great point and comment, and I will say there is a coalition and a group of organizations in Michigan that are entertaining how we could protect abortion rights. I haven't heard about the ERA amendment in particular, but there has been talk about some sort of ballot initiative or a reproductive health act that we could pass through the state legislature. So those are a couple things I've heard. And I don't know if anyone here wants to share more about, I know Nomi has done work in this coalition at the state level.
So first of all, I don't believe that having ratified the ERA as an individual state will provide any protection. If it really ended up becoming a constitutional amendment in the U.S. Constitution, then that's a different story. I think it's highly unlikely that that will ever happen because there was a willingness, and too much time had passed, and it would have to be introduced and re-ratified by every single state. So I don't think that that's our silver bullet. So there are talks, and this is a little premature because it hasn't been decided yet, to have a ballot initiative in Michigan. First of all, there is reproductive freedom legislation that's been introduced in Michigan, or it's being introduced next week, I think. Right. But we already know it's not going to pass. I mean, so it's so it's great, it's symbolic, but it's not going to pass. I think that we probably here, everyone is familiar with the ballot initiative process, where if you get a certain number of signatures, then you can get something onto a ballot. So there are a number of reproductive justice coalitions who are discussing this. It would be, a massive, massive undertaking. Like, just to put this into perspective, it cost Palma, which I know a lot of people do work on, that cost $5 million for the campaign, and there was no organized opposition to it. Okay, so this is going to cost at least $20 million to do a ballot initiative. So we're still investigating the feasibility of it, the likelihood that it would pass, all of that stuff. That being said, it's never too early to try and get you guys to commit to volunteering. I don't know if we're going to need you yet, but we're probably going to need you. If this goes under, I know a lot of people here, I recognize a lot of people who are collecting signatures for Prop 2, for Prop 3, for other props further back. So I know many people here are seasoned signature collectors, and I'm going to pass this around. And what I want you to do is, if we do a ballot initiative, if you are willing to be part of our army, part of our volunteers, then I want you to put your name, phone number, and email address. So, and I'm sending it to you first because you reached for it.
I also want to share Audrey Pleasant, and I have been working for a few years now together, and Audrey's social justice committee did this incredible work last year to send postcards to voters and to activate voters, and hopefully this is like a continued partnership, because Nomi and I are in a coalition together, and it would be amazing to keep working toward building power, especially if we do something like a ballot initiative. So I just want to recognize the amazing work Audrey Pleasant and the Social Justice Committee has done.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
I want to add one more thing, because I feel like since I was talking about a ballot initiative, that it would be remiss of me if I did not mention it, that there currently is a ballot initiative where people are actively looking for signatures called Secure My Vote. Yeah. And that is a different topic.
We're all over that one. Decline to sign. We have a big sign out there about it too. Thank you though for bringing it up. That is one of the worst things I've ever seen any government officials ever try. What a load of garbage. Thank you, and thanks for your insights. I think you had a couple more slides.
Just a couple. I'll wrap this up. First, just a couple more. But first, before we get into action items, I'd just like to again acknowledge I've been working directly with Audrey Pleasant, and so I'll lay out a few action items, but say if you want to connect and get into action, reach out to Audrey, and we'll be working together to get folks plugged in where folks want to get plugged in. A couple things you could do is you could call senators now and talk to them about the Women's Health Protection Act, and I have a link to that. And then we can move to the next slide. So phone banking for the Women's Health Protection Act, we can move to the next slide. We do phone banking, so maybe this is something that we can think about if you want to come individually, or maybe the Social Justice Committee might be interested in that, and then we can move to the next slide. We are going to have a leadership summit on Wednesday, November 17th at 7. Folks are invited to that, and then I think there's one more. Oh, questions. So we have a lot of events going on. If folks are interested in joining, I'm more than happy to give folks links, and I'll email Audrey a list of every action item and link if you want to reach out to her as well.
We'll make sure it goes in the newsletter. We cover this every single week, so
Cool.
we'll keep it up to date.
Amazing. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, we always say elections matter, but they matter for a really long time. You know, nobody thought that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was going to die on the eve, basically, of Rosh Hashanah, and that they were going to squeeze through this person. But here we are, and we have a lot of issues in this country, but I'll tell you, the human rights of people who get pregnant should be top among them. All right, we'll conclude with peace be with you. Once again, thank you, Laura.
Peace be with you wherever you go. Peace be with you whatever you do. Peace be with you till we meet again. Peace be with you, my friend. Love be with you wherever you go. Love be with you whatever you do. Love be with you till we meet again. Love be with you, my friend. Joy be with you wherever you go. Joy be with you whatever you do. Joy be with you till we meet again. Joy be with you, my friend. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom, Shalom. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom, Shalom. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom, Shalom. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you, everybody. Shabbat Shalom.